Boleh, boleh, boleh.
Mm. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. So we are from Group 4. So we're going to present about discourse analysis in meaning and context. So let me introduce myself and the members of the group. I'm Kholifah Bani Ose and my friend.
I'm Anna Tiara, and
I'm Rizki Auliya Putri.
So next slide, please. For the first, it's going to be my part. So, what is pragmatic? Pragmatic is the studies how context influence meaning beyond the literal words. So we have two key difference in here. First is in semantic, I could kill you is a tree or dictionary meaning. And in the pragmatic, I could kill you is I'm annoyed or when said by a friend. For example, first, a friend drops your phone, and I could kill you means not literal, just frustration. And then the second is kidnapper in a movie. I could kill you mean literal treat. Why does it matters? Because misunderstanding pragmatics can lead to confusion or offense. Next slide, please. And then we're going to implicator. What is implicator? Implicator is when a speaker implies something beyond the literal meaning of their words. For example, if someone receives a gift and respond with, "Did you keep the receipt?" The listener can infer the real message is, "I don't like the gift." This is an example of pragmatic communication, meaning depends on the context, interpersonal relationship, and cultural norms. Listeners use inference to uncover the intended meaning behind what is said. Next slide, please. The next material is the cooperative principles, or we call it CP, introduced by philosopher Paul Grice. The cooperative principles suggest that the speaker generally aim to be understood and assume their listener will also try to understand them. According to Grice, make your conversational contribution such as is required at the stage at which it occurs by the accepted purpose or direction of the talk exchange in which you are engaged. This doesn't mean we always speak plainly. Even indirect or vague speech can still follow the cooperative principle, as long as the speaker intends the listener to infer the real meaning. This shared goal of understanding underlies most conversations, even those that include disagreement or sarcasm. Next slide, please. And then in here we have Grice for conversational maxims. Grice identified four key maxims, conventional expectation that help conversation run smoothly. So first is quantity. This is will give the right amount of information. First, be as informative as needed. Second, don't say more than necessary. Second is quality. So we need to be truthful. Like we don't say what you believe to be false, and then don't say things you lack evidence for. And then the third is relation. We need to be relevant. And then the last is manner. We need to be clear and orderly. Avoid obscurity and ambiguity. Be brief and be orderly. Next slide, please. And then we have floating maxim. To float a maxim means to blatantly break it on purpose, while still expecting the listener to understand the intended meaning. Floating is the key way of generating implicature. The hearer notices the float and works out what the speaker really means. And then why we need to float the maxims. Floating is cooperative. It shows speakers are still trying to communicate, just not directly. Reasons including is one is for politeness, so it gonna be softening the harsh truth, and then it can be humor and sarcasm, avoiding awkwardness, and then cultural norms or shared knowledge. So listeners are expected to read between the lines and understand the speaker real message. Next slide, please. And then in here we have floating the maxim of quantity. Quantity relates to how much information is given. It's floated in two ways. First is too little. For example, A said, "Have you seen Frozen?" And then B answered, "I might have." So this implicates yes, but they are embraced to admit it. And then the second is too much. So the A said, "Have you seen Frozen?" So B answered, "Yes, on March 8th, 16th, 40, 24th." So this is implicates they've seen it a lot, more than needed to say. So the floating maxim of quantity prompt the listener to infer something beyond the surface meaning. And then we have floating the maxim of quality. So this maxim is about truthfulness and includes two sub-maxims. First is don't say what you believe to be false. And then for the example in here, A said, "Have you seen Frozen?" And then B answered, "Only a gazillion times." So gazillion is not real. So this is sorry. Sorry. Okay, guys, can you hear me? So, so the gazillion is not real. So this is exaggeration, and its implicator, they've seen it too much. And then the second is don't say what you lack evidence for. For the example, A say, "I can't believe you haven't seen Frozen." And B answer, "There are literally thousands who haven't seen." And then this is implicate, probably true, but not very, very viable. And it's not unusual at all. So floating maxim of quality is the speakers float this maxim for emphasis or sarcasm, assuming the hearer understands the exaggeration. And then we'll move to the next slide. We have floating the maxim of relation. So the relation is relevance. When someone responds with something that seems off topic, they're often floating this maxim to imply something else. For example, A said, Do you want to go see Frozen?" And then B answered, "I'm 55 years old." This implicator, "No, I'm too old for that." The answer isn't directly relevant but suggests their disinterest in a humorous or polite way. And then the last we have floating the maxim of manner. Manner relates to how something is said clear, concise, and orderly. A speaker might float it by using overly complex or obscure language, often to hide the message from someone else. For example, sorry, I said, "Oh no, traffic jam is not bad. I only managed to watch the one movie, two podcasts, and write a short novel in the car." The implicator of this statement is yes, the traffic was terrible. Exaggeration is used for humor and shared frustration. And then the second example is I'm laundering my cranial follicular protein filaments. This implicator, I don't want to go. A humorous way to say I'm washing my hair. This floating maxim of manner is often at humor, sophistication, or secrecy. I think that is all. Next presenter will be Amanda. Amanda, time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for Kholifah for the explanation about floating maxims, and everything related to maxims. So, in discourse analysis, we can pilot maxims, and we call this opting out, enrichment, and violate. So, what is violate. So violate is a conversational participant that may quietly and unintentionally not to fulfill a maxim. So Grice notes in the book that in some cases, this is a label to mislead to other participants. So a lie would be a violation of the quality of maxim. In violating a maxim, the speaker is being unintentionally uncooperative, in which case such unintentional violations are not relevant to what is communicated. So the example here that we can take is like a politician that falsely claims 3,000 fans had taken tickets to cover up even planning. Let's break it into parts. So this example of violate, as you can see from the text, if you read the text about the things that I told you before, we can see that in here, the dominant statement is violate the violation of quality in maxims, because in here, the speaker's dominant should not telling the truthful answers, and he says what he believes that is false. So he's violating the maximum quality, which is be truthful and saying what is true. And in here, the violation including he claimed that 30,000 to 40,000 Liverpool fans arrived with full fake tickets without evidence, which is mean that he telling us a lie. And this was later debunked, and the chaos was due to poor policing and not ticket fraud. And he intentionally led to deflect blame from authorities to cover a violation. And here, Darmanin didn't want the public to detect the lie, so he wanted the people accepted as the truth. So in here, he followed the maxims of quality, and this is the example of Darmanin's statement that related to violation of quality. And next is what is opting out. So the other things that can violate maxims is opting out. So opting out is when a conversation participant makes it clear in some way or another that they will not or cannot be cooperative. So in Grace's example, is like, I cannot say no more, my lips are sealed, no comment, I think I cannot answer this question. Well, they know the answer. So this kind of common phrases such as no comment, like I told you before, also can be in this category because the speaker doesn't want to be cooperative with the other speakers. So in here, they know what they want to say, but they tend to seal their lip because they want to hide something maybe, or they don't want to tell the truth. So in opting out, a speaker is jeopardizing the CP, but doing so on record, which is to say explicitly state that they will opt out. So opting out can be a conversational strategy to avoid commenting to a proposal or suggestions. Like when political figures think or to refuse to talk on a topic, or when a suspect of crime refuses to speak and asking for a lawyer instead of the things they want to say because they are afraid that they're going to say wrong things. And the other hand, opting out can be a noble or genuine attempt to respect contextual constraints, because when we're trying to be silent while we know the answer, it can be an action to protect someone's safety or to protect someone's heart from being hurt of the truth. So opting out is something that you can do as a good things as well, not only bad things in a political way or just to lie about or just to keep a secret. And next is the infringement of maxim. So infringement of maxim, actually Grice didn't really put these things, and this infringement is came by Thomas in 1995. So infringement of maxims is a speaker who, with no intention of generating an implicature and with no intention of deceiving, that fails to observe a maxim and is said to infringe the maxim. On the other words, the non-observance stems from imperfect linguistic performance rather than from any desire on the part of the speakers to generate a conversational implication. So this type of non-observance could occur because the speaker has an imperfect command of the language. Example, a young child or a foreign learner or a kid with mental illness such as autism, HDHD, and so on. Because the speaker's performance is impaired in some way, like nervousness, drunkenness, or excitement, and because of some cognitive impairment, or simply because the speaker is constitutionally incapable of speaking clearly to the point. So this kind of infringement actually happen in the neurodivergent people that can often infringe maximum interactions. Like in one study in Lost and Cats in 2006, children with autism spectrum disorder were asked to respond the question, "Tell me about the time when you felt embarrassed." To respond this question, in one instance, a boy, the 10-year-old with autism, give rather unspecific question and just say, usually when I say things, they don't really, as he's saying too little and didn't really make a contribution as informative as required, because in here, in the study, they're asking something that needs an explanation, but instead of saying something with an explanation, the kid's just saying that a simple things that he knows because he lacks of linguistics ability to explain the things. And one other literary example that we can take from this maximum infringement is we can find in the interaction of Mark Haddon's character, a narrated the curious incident where here Christopher, the narrator, asking a 10-year-old autism about what he doing, and he just saying something related to what he wants to say, not what we supposed to say. And I think this is all infringement, and next gonna be continued by Rizki.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Now we will talk about doing implicatures in real discourse. So in digital spaces like Instagram or WhatsApp, people often use multimodal discourse, which just means communicating that mixes text, images, sometimes sound or video. For example, memes. Memes are indirect and funny, but they actually rely on shared knowledge or culture between the sender and receiver. So if you don't get the reference, the joke kind of fails. Let's look at the picture I attached on the left. This is about the story of Bandung Bondowoso. So in here, Roro Jongrang asked him about uh, 1,000 temples that he promised to build for her, but what can she sees is only like 999. And Bandung Bondowoso's response was pictured like this, like he's asking her, "Did you really ask me like about this?" Because Bandung Bondowoso knows about the fact that Roro Jongrang was the cause of uh the f- the failure that he made. So we know afterward that Bandung Bondowoso later turned Roro Jongrang herself into the last missing piece. What I meant about shared knowledge or the cultural is because the sender or the maker of this meme knows both about the meme, like the well-known meme that we know, the Paket Nanya, and also the story of Bandung Bondowoso. Us, as the receivers, if we don't know about both of that, we will miss the joke. If you still wonder why we talk about memes for this context, it's because memes often flout Grace's maxims, especially quantity and quality. Sometimes they say too little, like this Bandung Bondoso, or they state things that aren't literally true, but we still understand the point because we are in on the context. That's why the humor feels rewarding, a full satisfaction once you laugh at the meme. It's like a little win when you get the joke, and that also strengthens group identity or social closeness. You might have experienced bonding with your friends because you guys share the same humor. Next slide, please. We'll talk about more examples about the memes like in my head. On the left, we've got Absorbent Andy or SpongeBob. The literal meaning about this I can my head out is like he is leaving, but non-literally, it's used when someone wants to escape an awkward or annoying situation. This flows the quality maxim because the person might not actually be leaving, but we still get the point. They want out. On the right, this is the student meme, one that I believe we all understand as students itself. The professor starts saying attendance isn't required, but he hasn't finished yet, and half the class just leaves. That's a form of aposiopesis, or cutting the sentence short for effect, which works really well for comic timing. Comic timing here means the joke hits right when the sentence cut off, and we fill in the rest ourselves. So here, the funny thing relies on students leaving before the professor could finish because they think it's no use to stay longer if it's not mandatory. But memes show how we need shared understanding to get the joke. They are not just humorous, but also carry pragmatic meaning, which just means the deeper implied message. Not just what's said, but what's meant. Next slide, please. Now, the conclusion, what we can get from this presentation is are Grice's ideas apply to both traditional and modern communication. Speakers often flop maxims to imply meanings without stating them. Meaning is co-created. Speaker implicates and then listener infers. Pragmatic meaning is context dependent and shaped by social goals. When analyzing any message, consider what's said and what's not said. That's all from me. I'll give it back to the moderator.
Okay, I think that is all for our presentation. If you guys have any question, you can leave in the comment section. So if we have any mistake, we apologize. And thank you for watching us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.